Hello and welcome into the Free Outside podcast in this marvelous month of Jeff.
Month of Jeff.
We are having another Jeff on the podcast. It's all Jeffs all the time, all month long here on the month of Jeff. That's all we interview. We are forgetting other names exist because Jeffs are simply the best, at least for this month, because I couldn't find enough to go all year. Anyways, today's Jeff, I should say, because they're not only a guest, but they're also a Jeff, is Jeff Colt. So he is a good friend of Jeff McGavro, and he grew up doing this thing called Nordic Combined Ski Racing, I guess it's called. So basically the competition, I'm explaining this because we don't really get into explaining it in the interview, but you start with a ski jumping event, and that's the event where you're like on those big skis and you fly through the air like Eddie the Eagle, if you ever saw that movie. And you get like points for how far you went, how good you look doing it. I obviously did not grow up doing this. And then that determines where your starting order is for the cross-country ski section of the race. And then whoever does the best wins the race. So super cool style. I like how the seating is done with the jumping. So Jeff Colt, he has won Bandera 100K. He's gotten 2 Western States golden tickets, top 10 at Western States. He's run worlds. He was on the world team for Thailand. That's it. He's set the White Mountain Hut Traverse FKT, worked at the White Mountain Huts. So super fun interview. We'll get to that in a moment. I saw Wicked last night. It's pretty good. I'm not always a huge musical guy, but it was pretty good. And no one sang in my theater. Also, between me and my girlfriend, we almost ate an entire large popcorn. So pretty proud of that because high carb fueling is what it's all about. So lately, just all Wicked songs have been stuck in my head. I would give it an 8.5 gels out of 10, if that's the system that we're rating on. Okay, let's get into the interview with Jeff Colt. I hope I explained everything that needed explaining. If I didn't, just if you're on Spotify, swipe up and write a comment. Also, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/freeoutside. And if you're wondering my opinions on nose strips, I did a bonus episode on there that you can get for as little as $5 a month. That keeps the lights on, and you can see the lights are on currently. So thank you guys. And bonus content hitting there every week. What else am I supposed to say? 5-star reviews help us on all the platforms. And I haven't read, I read them last time. I'll read any 5-star reviews you guys write on Apple next time. Okay, let's get into it. This is Jeff Easy Dog Colt. Today, in another edition of the month of Jeff, we have on Jeff Colt, who has won Bandera 100K to win a golden ticket. He's set the FKT on the White Mountain Hut Traverse and top 10 at Western States. So my first question is, how do you travel with a golden ticket? Isn't it like a huge piece of cardboard?
Yeah, my first golden ticket I got at Black Canyon in 2022, and I did travel home with it, and I gave it to the flight attendant, and she put it with like the, fancy people's coats up in first class. And I didn't really know what to do with it. I've never been one to like keep trophies or have medals around my house and stuff. So I gave that one to our local run shop. And then the second golden ticket I got, I didn't take on the spot. One of the reasons was I wanted to chat with my family because Western States is a pretty big undertaking, and I wanted to fully assess whether or not I was up for returning. So I only had to deal with it one time, but at Black Canyon, I'm seeing if it comes off my computer here. Jubilee, who's the race director there, also just gives you a chocolate bar wrapped in a little golden ticket. I did keep that as my memento, as opposed to like the big poster board on the wall.
But you never ate the chocolate?
I did eat the chocolate. It was actually just a Hershey's bar wrapped in a nice Western States golden ticket wrapper.
Okay, so if you don't take it on the spot, do you still get a big golden ticket?
No, they're not going to ship you the big golden ticket. It'd be an interesting question to ask Craig sometimes of like, Craig, you travel to these races with anywhere from 4 to 6 golden tickets. On the odd occurrence that someone doesn't take it, Do you just like toss it in a dumpster, or what do you do?
Yeah,
Because
this is
yeah,
good.
I didn't take it from Bandera. I assume that he didn't travel back to California with it, but who knows?
Yeah, that's weird for him too, just having to travel all the time with a bunch of golden tickets.
Yeah,
Man, yeah, okay, let's go way back before running. So, did you grow up more in the ski world?
I grew up in both.
Okay.
So the before running, there is a time before running. I started running competitively when I was like 7 years old, but I started ski racing competitively when I was 4 years old. So I was ingrained in all things skiing growing up in New Hampshire. Um, I say it kind of jokingly, but it was pretty serious. Like through high school in the winter, I had anywhere from 15 to 17 ski practices or competitions a week.
Whoa.
And that came from doing the Ski Meister, which in New Hampshire is alpine skiing, ski jumping, and Nordic skiing, and competing in those three disciplines. So it'd be like 3 p.m. Nordic practice right after school, 5 p.m. alpine practice till 8 p.m., 8 p.m. jumping under the lights until 10 p.m., get home, try to do some homework, do it again. Miss school on Fridays for alpine races. Friday nights, head to then the ski jumping meets. So a lot of skiing through high school, somewhat balanced with a lot of competitive running through my childhood as well.
Yeah, do you think that just breeds really strong ultra running athletes? Because now you're the third person in a row, because I think I'll put this out tomorrow, that's been a high level skier that's also a high level runner.
Yeah, I would go ahead and say that Nordic skiing is up there with the best endurance, foundation sports you can do. And I think a lot of the Nordic skiers in the 80s and 90s set the bar for even the triathletes and cyclists who kind of maybe now are more credited with this like endurance training prowess. But like all the Nordic skiers I've known, a lot of the toughest humans I know, they like decide to get into mountain bike racing, and they're all, off the couch invited to, be on the, Grand Prix, like mountain biking circuit and whatnot. And here in the Roaring Fork Valley, we have Simi Hamilton, who is a multi-time Olympian and World Cup, podium skier for the U.S., as well as this guy, Ben Coons, who, raced Nordic for Dartmouth. And there's no like question, they're off the couch the best athletes in the valley.
Wow.
And this valley has a lot of amazing athletes. So it's like you just look at the foundation that Nordic skiers get growing up. I can't claim to be like full bred Nordic skier. I definitely was more of an alpine ski racer who found his legs in Nordic, and a true way of running.
Yeah, what are like the clicks in skiing? So Nordic are just like the machines that are like sweating a bunch, are like the jumpers like, really cool wearing fashion.
Ooh,
Like tell us about
maybe.
the clicks.
I mean, jumpers are mostly European at this point. Ski
Uh-huh.
jumping, unfortunately, is a dying sport, and there's not a huge participation in the U.S. So in terms of like fashion, like yeah, based on the fact that they're like 6'4", pencil like thin, like Scandinavians, they're more fashionable than a lot of people. The breakdown, I'd say, and what I felt through my childhood, I loved alpine ski racing. I like lived for it. I hit puberty pretty late, so I was a lot smaller than my peers, and that makes a big difference when you're alpine ski racing. Um, Alpine ski racing, if you're at the finish line and you come down and you're sitting in first place and there are 10 racers left, unfortunately, the thought that's going through your mind is like, please don't beat me. Please don't
Like
beat
you
me.
root against
Like
every single
it,
competitor.
it's kind of like that's naturally what's going through
Hmm.
your head, right?
Yeah.
I hated that. And like what I found in Nordic and Nordic combined was you have these mass start races. Everyone starts at the same time. Even if someone beat me, like by kind of putting a leg forward at the finish line and we're both flat on the ground, like I gained this sense of camaraderie, of like shared misery, solidarity with the people I was skiing against. And like we'd go do our kind of cool downs together, and we'd be in the gym after the race with our legs up against the wall, like flushing lactic acid out. And I just found it to be a way more communal and like supportive environment. That's like, in many ways, that's what drove me eventually to like just quit trying to pursue alpine ski racing and lean into ski jumping and Nordic. The Nordic Combined folks, Nordic Combine's a funny world. Jumping asks you to have fast twitch muscles. Nordic asks you to have slow twitch muscles. So you end up with these like some Nordic skiers who just are incredibly good and have some ups, and like they end up, not doing the best in the jumping, but they can make up for it in the Nordic. And then some jumpers who are just so much better at ski jumping, and they kind of suffer through the Nordic. It's a really beautiful discipline. Unfortunately, it's cut from the next Olympics. How things go, it's also one of the original Olympic sports, which is pretty sad. But how things go with the Olympics is if a sport is added, like I'm just going to give a round of applause to Skimo. It got added to the Olympics. Jeff Mogavero was on here. I know he's gunning for a potential spot.
David Sinclair too.
Yeah, to represent the U.S. Cam Smith, John Gaston. These awesome athletes. But kind of the repercussion of Skimo being added is that Nordic Combined actually got cut.
And I thought they were just going to take out breakdancing, but yeah.
Yeah. And it's crazy because curling just gets so much airtime and so much play time. But
curling is the baseball of the Olympics. It's like, it's a time eater. Like they can just have it on all the time.
Fully. I used curling as the example of why the Summer Olympics needs to introduce the backyard ultra format, because it would just be on all the time. And anytime they need an ad break or like, hey, let's put something on TV, it's like, this guy is still running. This woman has been at it for 19 days. Like closing ceremonies are tomorrow. She's still going.
Yeah, I love this. I had it on my list. So let's just go there. So your plan would be opening ceremonies. Do they even walk in it, or does it like start right when the torch is lit and then just
I think quick transition. I think they get to walk opening ceremonies and then start the backyard ultra, have that nice it's kind of a random number, right? It's like 4.1 mile.
Yeah.
I don't actually know. I've never done a backyard ultra. But start right after that and just
do you think
keep
put
it
them
going.
in lane 9 of the track too?
That I think would end up being just a nuisance all around. But
it would be hilarious though, because you'd see some people like walking in the background to like the 100-meter.
if the course just like is kind of outside the track and then just comes on for curve in a straightaway and in lane 9 on the backstretch, could be something.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty fun. Yeah, I like this. It could be, I don't even know how long Olympics go, but it would be interesting how long they could
like
eat
2
up.
weeks, right?
Yeah, so they probably kill the first week at least.
I think they would.
Yeah.
And again, I don't ever want to discredit anyone who's currently doing backyard ultras. Like that's an amazing feat and something that I'm not keen to try, but I also I don't think I'd be successful at. I do think if it got pushed to the Olympic standard or like Olympic format, kind of like we're seeing with Skimo, where all of a sudden like, all right, a lot of Americans are like they're doing their training camps, they're like trying to perfect their transitions and stuff. I think the sport would just be elevated in such an astronomical way that these like 6 day, like I think the number would just leapfrog in a huge way.
Yeah, it'd be so interesting because it'd be one of the few sports that's just like thought up by a guy 35 years ago, and then in the Olympics, that would be such a cool rise of a sport.
I mean, we'll see. Pickleball is getting ridiculously competitive globally, so that's one that has had a steep ascendancy and
yeah,
be there as well.
If we're adding that, what are you going to cut in the Summer Olympics?
Yeah, that's hard. I feel like, maybe there's right? Is there also like 3-on-3 basketball as well?
Yeah, we can get rid of
There's
that.
different iterations of sports that I'm always like surprised to see are in the Olympics. I don't know if there's two different types of water polo or what. Um, but for me, the Summer Olympics are track and field. Like that and gymnastics are like the two things I typically am like most hyped on. Um, but it'd be a shame to see any of like the traditional OG track events get canceled. That's kind of how I felt about, Nordic Combined getting the Kai box. It's like, this is one of the original winter sports.
Yeah, I think the world should learn from ultra running and just have it be like Western states, where if you've been in for at least 9 Olympics, you just automatically are penciled in forever. Like you get that 10th shot no matter what.
Nice.
So I want to go back to the White Mountains because people seem to love the White Mountains, including myself. They're just brutal. But what is it like working in the hut system out there?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, I don't know if we ever crossed paths. There's a chance we might have. I don't know
There's
if you
a
hiked
good chance.
Yeah, I don't know if you hiked the AT between 2011 and 2016, but
2016, Zealand Hut was the main one I spent time at.
Nice. So I worked over the course of 6 summers. I spent time in 8 different huts. There are only 8 huts. I also spent time caretaking at Tuck's Hermit Lake Shelter. The White Mountains are amazing. I mean, like growing up there, I started skiing Tuckermans when I was 7, 8 years old. That was like our family pilgrimage up to kind of experience Tucks on a sunny March or April day. And I went to school over in Vermont, like really, really wanted to be a fire lookout in the Cascades. And like, that's what I applied for after my senior year of high school. That's what I applied for. I probably applied for it all through college.
That was like career goal, like rest of your life.
Like I just wanted to follow Gary Snyder's footprints and like be in the mountains that he talked about in his writing. I didn't get hired by the Forest Service to like do one of those posts, but I did get hired by the AMC to work at Zealand Hut my first summer. And it was in the huts that I really like, I guess I didn't even find out really about ultra running, but I started running a lot farther. And, I competed in junior Olympic cross country and starting at like 7, 8 years old, had a pretty successful high school running career, got recruited to run in college, ended up falling out of love with like the competitive format in college and wanted to just spend more time in the mountains. And I tried my first hut traverse in 2011 on Hike Naked Day. I was butt naked. I got horrible chafing. Great first introduction to like what not to do.
So had you trained? We got to stop and go through this story. So had you trained going into this, or was it sort of like, this seems like a crazy idea, I'm just going to try it?
Yeah, I would say I was pretty like headstrong, 19-year-old, 20-year-old. I knew like I had some pretty strong legs under me from my running history, and like the hut traverse FAT at that time was 12:28.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't really know what that means. 50 miles, it's not that long. I can do it faster than that. And like, kind of like, the classic ego trip of like, I'll do it with my pants around my ankles. Like, I'm going to do this like ass naked.
Yeah. Where did you carry gels, or should I even guess?
I didn't carry any nutrition. I had a stick with a pair of shorts tied on the top of it in case I like had any chance of indecent exposure. So I was like running with a staff up Madison Gulf and like would get to like a hut and like if there weren't people there, I'd like, sneak in and grab a Snickers. If there were people there, I'd throw the shorts on, sneak in, buy a Snickers or a Big Good or something and continue on. So yeah, no understanding of fueling or nutrition, like hydration. But
did you at least know about sunscreen?
Yeah, that was like the taping was the real issue. I bailed at Zealand and I think I wore a sarong for the next like 3 or 4 days. But it planted the seed in my head. I was like, I want to keep doing these like longer runs. And for me, like in college training, a long run was like maybe 18 miles, like, and that's on a dirt road, Hampshire, Vermont. this summer I worked at Greenleaf. Greenleaf Hut is on the side of Mount Lafayette. There's a hard trail down. There's like a little loop with falling waters, old bridle path, and then there's the Greenleaf Trail. But otherwise, like it seems like there isn't much hiking there. Like you'd have to go a lot farther to do like a variation of loops. And that's kind of like what clicked in my head. I was like, if I stop thinking about 12 miles, 15 miles as like the daily hike and start thinking about 25 miles, I can do way bigger adventures. And like I worked in the huts 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. It wasn't until 2015 that I was like, whoa, this like Vermont 50 looks cool. Like there's these like ultra races that are other people who are excited about running long. And the Vermont 50 in 2015 is actually where I met Jeff McGavro for the first time, as well as our friend Colton Gale, like just running, chatting with some of the other guys up front. I was like, what's your name? And Jeff was like, Jeff. What's your name? And Colton was like, Colton. Like, that's pretty weird. My name's Jeff Colt, and I'm like in the middle of you two.
Wow.
That race didn't go well for me or Jeff McGavro, but it was our first touch point and like a humbling first experience, in the sport.
He told me he was surprised you both kept doing it after how rough that race was.
Yeah. Definitely a lesson. I think I had more ibuprofen, pills than I took in like gels or calorie. I was just like, this hurts. Keep throwing the ibuprofen down.
Wow. I would not recommend it to anyone listening.
No, definitely not.
So
Not good
bad.
to replicate.
Yeah. And so it seems like a theme though of it's hard at first or even fail at first. And then you come back. I mean, even like Bandera or golden tickets in general, it's like kept going after them. The White Mountain Hut Traverse, ultras in general. Is there like a stubborn vein in you or something that's like, I got to figure this out if you don't at first?
In so many ways, like I just didn't realize what this community was or like the size of the sport. The next race I tried was a 50-kilometer race in Pownell, Maine. And I ended up winning that race and being like, whoa, this is cool. And that was probably a couple weeks before I moved to Colorado in 2016. And I got to Colorado and I was like, wait, there's like ultra races every weekend. There's like, I think I did Moab Red Hot that winter and saw like just the size and like growth of the sport. I was working in public relations for Hoka at that time and like was reading about these guys, Jim Walmsley and Hayden Hawks and Mike Wardian and like.
Were you at Outside PR?
No, this is before they went to Outside. This is at Backbone Media here in Carbondale.
Okay. Cool.
So I was kind of learning, like getting a real crash course education in ultra. Previous to that, like I had 3 friends in the White Mountains who like would talk about Western States and hard rock, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So when I moved to Colorado, I got this taste of like maybe like what a career in the sport could be. I was pretty broke after college. I had a lot of student loans and all I wanted to do was travel the world. And like, I'm seeing these like runners who are racing in France, they're racing in Japan, they're traveling the world and brands are paying for them to do that, or race directors in Cape Town are paying for them to like fly over there. And basically I was like, this is the only way I'm going to get to travel the world. Like with this like pile of student loan debt, like I'm not going to be buying plane tickets. So I like kept trying, and early on I learned, Western States was like this bigger stage where you could prove like, I guess maybe your value to a brand or something. My initial like outreach decks to brands or single page like resumes and stuff, like in the Randolph Ramble 10K in Randolph, New Hampshire, I got second to this other guy. And it's like, all right, I want to go after these like golden ticket races and try to take some bigger swings. But that in itself was challenging because like paying to get to Texas in 2018, like that was kind of my own travel budget for the year. And like I didn't get a golden ticket. So I waited till the next year and tried again and didn't get a golden ticket. So I waited till the next year and tried again. And like eventually COVID happened. And I think by the time I ended up on the starting line at States, it was a 5-year journey to try to get there. But yeah, I don't know. My route, I ended up chatting with my brother-in-law's dad, who is like on the board of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and he like entrepreneurial guy. He's like, Jeff, how much are your races going to cost this year? I was like, $1,000. He's like, I'm going to give you $1,000 if you vow and commit to fundraise $2,000 for Make-A-Wish. And I was like, yeah, I can get behind that. Like, I can get behind kind of this, like, under the table, like partnership with Make-A-Wish where, for a couple of seasons, that's how I funded my running was like, he independently funded me and kind of counted it as like a twofold donation to Make-A-Wish because it was then on me to try to elevate that 2x.
That's really cool. Yeah, because he could just donate $1,000, but he could turn 1,000 into 2,000 and get you racing. That's such a very entrepreneurial mindset on that. Did that help too, that he was literally betting on you? Did it help motivate you? Yeah.
I mean, I think, his name's Gary. Gary's initial, like, it was pretty early on in meeting him. Like, at that point, I think my sister and brother-in-law were engaged, but him just like being like, you like running, like what would you need to go further in this? And like his buy-in, like I kind of left being like, man, like is that a genuine offer? Like am I allowed to take him up on that? Because that would be pretty huge. And like my 2018 2019 seasons, like those were funded in part by this Gary, Make-A-Wish, Jeff fundraising triumvirate.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And I guess like even going into that, when you worked at the PR firm, did that like humanize the accomplishments? Did that make you think you could do it? Just seeing like Jim or Hayden or who, I don't even think Hayden was with him back then, but
he was. Yeah, he was also super early. Jim and Hayden signed actually pretty close together. Hayden had that standout speed goat performance and signed with them right after that. But I
think he had his ultra stint too for a while somewhere in there. Yeah.
I think it was a boomerang. I think he left and came back.
Yeah.
But I did not like agency work. I actually loved the company I was working for. I really liked the brands I got to represent. After Hoka, I worked with Black Diamond for a couple of years. But I had to always work on like 4 or 5 brands at once, and felt like I could never actually give my all to what I was trying to do. So seeing like, working with these athletes, like, I remember doing athlete media training with Hoka and like Jared Hazen and Tim Frericks and Jim and like, kind of like these meetings and saying like, I think I can hold my own against them, like in a running race. And like, I think I'd way rather be on that side of the table. So I definitely felt that. I did not see like a clear route to me just having like a home run race where I got sponsored. So I did like what I thought would be the next most valuable thing to a brand, which was own my jobs on like gear testing. And from 2017 to 2021, I worked for Outdoor Gear Labs. I worked for Trail Runner. I did a lot of gear testing, product reviews. I got to write maybe 10 or 15 like just articles for Trail Runner while they were still owned by Big Stone. And thought about like other ways I could bring value. And that ended up like eventually panning out, like in terms of, my relationship with I'm not like a social media guru, but I get to work with the engineering team really closely on product design. And it's like the place that I am much happier being. So I saw someone like Eric Sensman. Eric, awesome runner, but like, you go toe to toe, Eric Sensman and Jim Walmsley, like Eric earned his keep in the trail running space by having a really engaging, writing persona. He was building community, and I like looked at what he was doing, and it's like, that's maybe my route into this community, where I could bring value to a brand, considering I don't run a 28-minute end day.
Yeah. So when you see that and you want to work on the athlete side with the brand, what kind of intentionality or what were the steps you kind of take to set that up early on? Like where do you even start if you're mid-20s, no brand connection, but want to test gear because that's your route and your passion and you want to be an athlete?
Yeah, really, like publications are a great place. I'm sure you know this, Jeff, but like, for a company like Outside, right? Outside has designated category testers. And like, I share this because, if that 20-year-old's listening and is actually trying to seek this out, like, figure out, hey, reach out. Hey, I'm interested in like testing shoes. If you can figure out who the ski tester is for Outside, that ski tester is not able to test every single ski they're supposed to test. They have their network of people they work with and, trusted and patriots who get out and test. The like in that I found was Trail Runner used to be based here in Carbondale, and I knew like the gear editor and the managing editor there, and they knew that I was running on trails that are familiar to them, like pretty techy for Colorado. Like he would be a good person to get gear to, and some of that gear was like. I remember there being like a pair of sunglasses that I think could take photos, as well as like they had a headphone set. I was like, yeah, this isn't me. Like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't run with music. But a lot of it was, testing shoes that they needed long form reviews on, and shoes, apparel, packs, bottles, and just kept taking in whatever they give me and try to deliver quality
Totally.
reviews that would be helpful. My advice is like, it never hurts to reach out to a company. It's one thing to ask for a sponsorship. It's another thing to ask about building a relationship, and building a relationship can start with gear testing, can start with, hey, do you guys have a field service rep in this area? I'd love to link up with them and just like learn more about your brand. Anyone who's doing the field service rep job, super hard. They're doing a lot of events. It's a good person to try to link up with, and like, hey, I could, help out, and maybe I get a pair of shoes out of this.
It's like a way in to a lot of different avenues of, even if you want to do like be a writer or something, if it's in the outdoor through hiking space, the way in is usually through testing, because then you have examples of your work, and it's not the most enjoyable writing for a lot of people, but it's the stuff that sells stuff and keeps the magazine afloat. So I think it's a really good option. And the number one advice I would give is, you have to find the avenue that you're going down and find the person. And it's pretty easy to find emails if you're willing to put 5 or 10 minutes into it. And that's going to be the magic. You can't just email the info@outside.com and find anything. Yeah,
for sure. I think that, for me, other than the Make-A-Wish like situation, gear testing is what funded my ability to race. Like, there were days I was racing in the Brooks Caldera 3, which was a great shoe. There were days I was racing in the Nike Tiger 2, which was a great shoe. And like, I didn't have money to buy shoes. I mean, I started as an intern at Backbone. I ended up, moving on to being like an account manager, but like, this is an expensive place to live. And I had a huge pile of student loan debt. And like, even if running doesn't seem like an expensive hobby, if you're trying to compete at a high level, you might be going through 20 pairs of shoes in a year. Like you might be, just nutrition is like
Yeah.
devastatingly expensive. My MO until like just even 2 years ago was like, I'd always bring food on runs and I'd never eat it because I knew how much it cost to replace. So unless I bonked, like I wasn't going to touch it. And the same would go for races. Like I would always finish races with more food than I'd start. So that way I had a couple more gels at home.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I would grab them from the last aid station. Like I even won races like this where I'd put 10 gels in my pack because I'm thinking I need this nutrition versus like actually the competition out there.
Yeah, I mean, a little shameful, but like when I got my golden ticket and got third place at Black Canyon, I came into the final aid station. I was like, do you guys have any idea how far back they are? Like, no, but the finish is right there. Like, it's not even a mile and a half. And I looked at just all of these like Rockane gels and I just like double fisted, like into vest, run. And like, that was shameful just not thinking or considering all the runners later in the pack who, that mile and a half might have been pretty brutal. But yeah, I like saw it and was like, mile and a half, like, yeah, this is like $35 that I could save right now. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could have probably just asked Jamil at the end if he could send you some gels.
Yeah.
But I know, yeah, the mindset isn't like that. And it is, I grew up the same way of like very scrappy in my 20s to be able to thru hike and living on couches and stuff. And it is such a weird transition now where it's like, you have to be intentional about eating gels and nutrition and training the right way, because I had a phase where I would just take Jolly Ranchers as my fuel because it'd be like, it'll kind of be like water and it's got a few calories in it. So I don't need to carry anything and I can't afford a soft flask. So Jolly Ranchers it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to just like give as much gear and nutrition and like goodies to the Greater Valley whenever I can now. Like, all right, I just got 8 new bottles. Like, I don't need another 8 soft flasks. Like, let's redistribute. And yeah, I feel like I'm in a super privileged place and have a great partnership with On and NAC, and get some sunglasses from Pit Piper, and it feels great to be able to just pass those things on when I can.
I think you need to make like a parody video of dropping off like 15 gels at the last aid station instead of taking them out with you. Like NAC product placement.
Exactly, right? It's like Honey Stinger sponsoring the race and just like drop off all my NAC stuff at the last aid station and keep going.
Yeah, that's perfect. It'll get them going. So I guess moving forward a little bit, so you're signed up for Gorge 100K. Is the goal for Worlds with that?
100%. Yeah. I've been interested in the Worlds team for like quite a while. I would say I always felt like it came around and I didn't know how I was supposed to get on the team, but the team was announced and I was like, well, damn, that's a bummer. So when I saw that the 2022 World were delayed from 2021 and, we're going to be in Thailand, like that's a really intriguing part of the world to me. So I like first week of January when I was trying to figure out my race schedule, I hadn't even decided I was doing Black Canyon or like gotten into states or anything like that. I just emailed at that time. Richard Bolt was the head of USATF MUT. And my question was, hey, how did you get on this team? And he responded, Jim Walmsley and Aiden Hawks are pretty fast. I would look for races that they're in and try to race them.
Very scientific.
And I was like, all right, that wasn't super helpful. I did Black Canyon. I got into Western States in May, I think. They announced that Broken Arrow 43K was going to be the long course qualifier. It's like, well, I can't do that. That's the week before Western States. I just like continued my life, right? I like ran Western States. I had a decent performance. I got 11.
You raced Hayden there, so just like his advice, right?
There you go. Yeah. Actually, I think Hayden was 2022. He wasn't there. 2023 he was.
Okay, you did at
But
least one of them.
anyway, all of a sudden it's September and I'm like finally rebounded from Western State, which like that rebound takes a long time. And I'm sitting by our fire and I get an email saying you were selected for like Team USA. And it's like 5:30 in the morning and I just start laughing so hard because I never like submitted the only thing I submitted was an email inquiring how to get on this team.
It basically got laughed at.
Yeah. And like what? I like woke up my now wife. I was like, Annie, like, what? And she was like, point blank, like from bed. She was like, you got to do that. And like Worlds was without a doubt like the peak athletic moment of my life. It was so cool to be with 40 other U.S. trail athletes from juniors to Joe Grays and Max Kings. And like it, like, I think was the first real like foundational friendships that I had in the trail space were all made on that trip. And I don't think I ever really realized like how cool it would be to represent our country. And like we ended up winning, which was crazy. And like that, it was all such a trip. But I came back from that like so supercharged of like, hey, if I ever get an opportunity to run on a team and actually like represent our country or like just not run individually, like again, like I need to go for it. I didn't try to get on the team in Innsbruck because I wanted to give Western States my hard crack in 2023, but looking forward to 2025, like Worlds is the like single big target for me. And I'm actually stoked with Gorge 100K as the qualifier. I know I saw you give some opinions there. I definitely chatted with some other runners who gave some opinions there. Like 2 of the 6 spots will be decided at a race that is notoriously competitive and like is a good race that they like put on a really strong event. I think it's going to be like, it's going to bring together a competitive field, and 2 of those spots, yeah, we'll go to someone who maybe can run a 100K with 10,000 feet a little faster, but like can always take solace in the fact that the other 4 spots, you know, the Ben Demons, the Hayden Fox, the Zach Millers, like, I mean, first off, Hayden would win Gorge in a heartbeat if he wanted to. I think Adam Peterman might show up at Gorge. Like, there are certainly runners who could win Gorge and also win Worlds, and that's like an important point. But like, I have a long history and relationship with Katie Scheid from going to college and working in the huts with her and stuff. Like, Katie wants to be on Team USA. Like, submit the resume. You're the best runner in the world right now. Like, you're going to get on the team. You don't need to travel to Gorge. I feel the same way with like Ben Demon. Like, dude, like there's no reason to get upset about this being the qualifier race. Like, I think actually we should look at this in the last 5 years and be really appreciative that USATF MUT announced this in October instead of May.
Totally. Yep.
That like they gave some headway, and that, you know, Dylan Bowman and Daybreak Racing like wanted to do this because it takes a lot for a race director to put something like this on.
Totally. Yeah. I think my thought is that it's not perfect, certainly, but that's okay. And it's an awesome event. So I've kind of cooled initially. I mean, it's not like you're ever going to find anything perfect because it's trail running and nothing is 1-to-1. And it's just such an awesome event and coverage is good. I did just want like more of an epic translatable mountain thing, but you know, you don't get that time of year here.
It's super hard to find that time of the year, right? And I love like this idea of like, you know, if you build it, they will come. And like, there's concrete evidence of that. You know, Tom Hooper, who is one of the USATF council members who volunteers his time to, you know, work on the selection committee and help choose these races. Like, he built the Sunapee Scramble because there was a need for an early season up, down, or up mountain race. And like, my understanding is in 2023, it was still pretty damn snowy and it was totally epic and
Yeah.
gnarly. And like, you know, that was a reaction to people saying, hey, the right race doesn't exist. So hopefully folks who are giving criticism's the best. Like that's how we move this sport forward, right? So hopefully folks who are being critical of this select and like, and one, appreciate that it's volunteers running this, that includes, you know, some real current professional athletes in the space, and two, like start to put pressure to try to make an event that they feel better represents, you know, a mountain 50K or 50 miler.
Yeah, I think it really highlighted the fact that in that time of year, there's very little that would be considered technical and mountainous, and which is no fault of Gorge. In fact, I want to give credit to it's pretty amazing the comeback it's made. For anyone who doesn't know, it used to be a golden ticket race and a fire. My parents actually live 25 miles from there, and the fire rained ash on their house. Like it destroyed the whole course. It was gone for a few years, and then now it's back in a qualifier for Worlds, not Western yet, but it's still cool. But yeah, I think it just highlights that it's sort of this whole thing of flat running half the year into mountain running half the year for the most part, at least in the US.
Yeah, I think there's a couple exceptions and exceptional areas. The Franklin Mountains are like a weird mountain range in West Texas. The Franklin Mountain Ultra is like that race it's hard. It's technical. Like none of the climbs are huge, but it's super birdy. Like look at parts of Nevada, look at, you know, the greater San Diego region where there's these huge mountains down toward, you know, the Baja California border. And like it's going to take some ingenuity and some imagination, but like there are mountainous techie regions that aren't snow covered. Again, that's an if you build it, they will come. And like, it puts, you know, pressure on someone to take that initiative and really pour time and money into it. Because I'll say right now, like it's not easy to get pros to an event if that event isn't recognized by those runners, sponsors and stuff. And like, I don't really pay close attention to the performance incentives races. I don't go like seeking those out by way of running or qualifying for Western states I have, but, you know, just like gambling and be like, I'm going to go try a new race that has no reputation. It's a harder thing to do when you only have so many matches to earn. And, you know, yeah, you do have a brand that's expecting stuff from you.
Yeah, totally. How would I phrase this? Yeah, where do you think the sport is going in this sense? Because we have Worlds, we have this UTMB feeder system, and then we have like this Western hard rock qualifier, keep tickets rolling type of thing. Do you think these will, and I guess the Worlds is more like the almost spectator side of fandom, and the others you can be involved in. I don't know. It's just a very interesting time in the sport with those three separate things.
Yeah, I will say I think the Worlds element is, I see like the spectator side, right? It's one of the few areas where like you don't get to do the participation. Golden Trail World Series final is like one of the other ones where it's like, all right, there's actually like only 40 runners in this race. But I think it's like a pretty special platform just in terms of the, like, I think national pride side of things and bringing so many different countries and groups who all share the same passion together. I'm a big fan of the World format. I think as we look at like Hard Rock and Western States, I don't feel like they're going anywhere. I pretty much base my whole year's calendar off of the Hard Rock qualifiers. The only reason I ran UTMB in 2023 was because it was a Hard Rock qualifier. Like that's the race I want to do. And it's like, yeah, it's close to home here. It's in the most beautiful mountain range, in my opinion, in the, you know, US. And like, it feels in the same way that, you know, Burritos or UTMB or these like, you know, spectacle races in the most beautiful places in the world. Hard Rock's the one that really like fits that for me in the States. And I think like if we didn't have our wilderness system and national park systems, yeah, like racing through Yosemite, racing through the Grand Canyon, like that'd be crazy. But like that's
insane.
yeah, we have like beautiful protections on these lands so that they're not necessarily misused or abused. Hard Rock kind of feels like it stuck by.
Yep.
When I'm there, I'm like, this is worthy on a level that's like very different. So I think those lotteries will like continue being strong. I think the jockeying that I see going on is between World Trail Majors and UTMB races. At the end of the day, like they're both trying to grow our sport, and like I do believe they're trying to grow our sport in a positive way. Like, do I want to run UTMB right now? Like I don't know if that's on my priority list, but like, yeah, now I have to probably go look up how to get into UTMB, because it's not as, it's not as clear cut and straightforward as it used to be. I do love that the World Trail Majors, like they have identified some of the most spectacular races globally, and like you don't need to do a bunch of stuff to like be able to go run one of those. Like these are the like top destination races that you can sign up for and go race. So I think there's kind of space for each of these avenues right now. I do think that like UTMB, I'm sure the Pro Trail Runners Association like is playing a role in this as well. And then brands, by incentivizing their athletes to go to specific races, like we're going to see a continued narrowing of a pipeline. I think that's just where things are headed. I'd say that like in my opinion, like the broadest, not the Sharpie end of the sport, but it's still very sharp. It's just a lot more expansive, is like potential with fastest known time efforts. And like, I've told Jack Wenzel a couple times, like, dude, you should just go get the fastest known time on the Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc. Like,
Yeah.
go do it, like run 1940. I think you could. And like, it's not in the race environment, but like there's a lot of ways to approach things in a cool way. And right now, Era, David Edges, like there's that's maybe the part of the sport that excites me the most, and also like makes me like, damn, I wish I didn't necessarily have like some sponsorship commitments that I need to be like towing a starting line. I don't have to be. I kind of put some of those on myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it just provides more opportunity for, say, more professionals or more people at the top end? Because it can be, for lack of a better word, like specialized. Like some people, Western states is their goal, or top 10. Some people, it's UTMB. Some are like Mount UTMF could be someone's A goal. It's like these are all premier races within their region that I don't think we paid attention to 10 years ago, but now they all carry weight with sponsors. Do you think this is just part of the explosion of the sport, that now pros can do all these different things and be recognized?
Yeah, I think also there is a pressure, like, World Trail Majors, I think, did a pretty good job at positioning themselves as like, we want you to compete locally. And like, maybe the team I connected with the most, or the team I was most excited to compete with in Thailand, was like the Japanese team. And I just ended up running with two Japanese runners for a good bit of the race, and like really fought it out with them. But like, that's sweet that, Ultra Trail Mount Fuji can be like your local, like real championship race. I feel like in Colorado here, I don't necessarily feel this way, but a lot of people are like, Leadville is our race. That's our like home race. And I think like the regional pride and like the marquee event is a really cool thing. I want to see, like, I personally really want to compete in the Southeast and like the Smokies and stuff, because that's an area I love. And like, I want to see that regional energy. And like kind of poke my nose into like some of these other communities, is the golden ticket Western states like cycle has been one that I've been stuck in for, or committed to, but also in some ways stuck in for the last like 7 years.
Totally. And even like we're very West Coast, at least these days, but like Aravaipa is huge, but every region has like their own race director or race company too. And maybe some are a lot smaller, but they all have that vibe and the loyal volunteers. And I was up in Canada in September and they have Sinister Sports. And it's just so fun to do the regional stuff when you don't have to worry about a national stage or a live stream as well. And that natural or that local flavor.
Yeah. Yeah, I stand by Jemez Mountain Trail Runs is still maybe like up there with my favorite run I've ever done down in Los Alamos. Their team puts on such a good race, and it was just like, it was really cool to just like be in a little bit of a different pocket of the sport. Last January, I went down to Sean O'Brien, which is put on by KH Races in like the LA area. And yeah, that would like, Colorado is a pretty homogenous like trail running community, and being in like Malibu for that race, I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. Just seeing so many different runners, very different like walks of life, like basically seeing a bunch of people who didn't look like me, at least like gave me a lot of joy. Like this sport is spreading its wings, and I think I probably live too much in like the kind of little Colorado, Utah bubble in terms of racing, because I can drive to the races. Yeah, it's always a treat to be in a different spot.
Totally. Yeah. Especially, I'm sure Texas too is so different than Carbondale.
But, yeah. Being down there, I mean, I know we connected at Javelina, but like, I mean, Javelina.
Yeah. Javelina. Yep.
I mean, that was wild. And like, I'm not going to go into like the details of politics, but like, yeah, like seeing people with Sprinter vans with like hyper conservative bumper stickers, but fully camped out for a trail race where they were planning on hanging out for like 36 hours. Like, in my little liberal bubble, like we don't see a lot of that. And it's like, Javelina got me pretty hyped on just like wanting to go back and do that race. One, because of how easy it is to crew, which is something to consider after setting my crew up for Western States 3 years in a row and it being such a headache. But two, it's just like meeting different runners, meeting new faces, and like, yeah, it's a big country. Like I go back to Ricky Gates running across the country in 2017 to like meet Americans, and racing in different regions is, I think, like a great way to do that.
Yeah, I read like a walk across America with my dad when I was like 8, and that's where that whole concept got in my head of like, this is a pretty dang big country. But
yeah,
I want to.
You've now walked across it like numerous times.
I've done a lot of loops around this country. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of sketchy people that turned out nice. Is luckily the ending of most of the stories.
Yeah,
but I wanted to hit on how in the world do you do so much? Because you have a full-time job, you're a pro athlete, and you're even on a podcast here, but you have so much travel and stuff involved as well, and then gear testing still. How do you manage it all to compete with pro athletes who don't have a full-time job?
Yeah, I like the full-time job aspect of my life. I mentioned before, like, the whole agency thing wasn't really my jam, but I work with this company ZipFit now that we kind of took over in 2020, and I get to like fully sink my teeth into every element of it, from the product kind of development, production, iteration, like design, testing, prototyping, figuring out other great testers, building an athlete team, actually deciding how we're going to spend our money with marketing, and like trying to give that to athletes, like, and support, and like build this brand in the way that like felt right to me and like the right way to do things. Really like focused on customer service and like actually getting to know skiers who come to ZipFit for more comfortable ski boots. I kind of pigeonholed myself into feet accidentally and didn't really think about it until like I was a couple of years into it. Like, I think, folks are a little skeptical of me about whether or not I have a foot fetish. between like working on running shoe prototypes and designs and spending a lot of time thinking about shoes in the summer and then doing the same thing in the winter with ski boots. I definitely am thinking about like foot biomechanics a lot. Um, but yeah, I kind of attribute some of it to like the whole liberal arts education thing of just like, I'm not the best at anything, but I like having a full schedule and I'm quite good at a number of things. And, I like, revisit it from time to time, but no matter what, like I love the security of my job. I actually love doing the work that I do. And there's like elements of problem solving in my daily work that like I'd never have if I was focusing on my nap and then my long run and then like stretching and then my nap and then like a smoothie. Some things fall through the cracks like here and there. I think I did need to have a smoothie today and never did that. But I think routine ends up being really helpful.
Do you think
when I am
Yeah, do you find it alleviates the pressure of like running
100%.
too?
Well, 100%. It also like it makes running something I really love. And like I feel like I have, the full-time job of my dreams, and I feel like I have like the side hustle of my dreams. And like going back to the beginning of this conversation, I work in the ski industry and ski, and I get to run professionally and run. And like since I was a kid, these were my two passions. And like I in a lot of ways I feel like I manifested this from like elementary school. And I'm really grateful for that. I also think like it keeps I think my brain a little bit more plastic and dynamic, like not solely thinking about running. And like I'll go a couple years and then realize like, oh, like this thing's happening in like the trail running space. How did I not know about that? It's like, oh yeah, like I'm thinking about skiing for 6 months of the year and, working with people on their instep pain. But yeah, I think travel is like both like the exciting parts of life in a lot of ways. And it's also one of my biggest challenges. And like, I have to travel for work. I certainly get to travel for running. I should just say, no matter what, there's no have to. I get to travel for work. I get to travel for running. Like, travel brings a lot of variety and, like, I think challenge in a way that, like, keeps my brain open to change. But it can definitely be exhausting. And, like, I find like when I am home and have the routine, I'm like, ooh, I'm in the routine right now. Like, this is a groove. I can, like, roll with this.
Yeah, and you created like a running community too in Carbondale and stuff. So you've got that on top of everything.
Yeah, that I feel like I just need to give back and like I spent the first like 6 years in this valley pretty much running by myself all the time. And there's all these other runners who are running, and like even if these people don't want to run with me, if I can create some type of community where two people get together and run because they have some like platform or point of connection, like that's a win. I really do think the sport is so beautiful because it can be shared. And was out there solo, I think, for a little too long.
Totally. Yeah. Just a couple more things. Speaking of not being solo, tell us about Race Day Rick.
Oh man. Race Day Rick is my dad. We grew up in New Hampshire. I grew up in a family where all of us had our own NASCAR drivers that we cheered for. Loudon Speedways in New Hampshire. We get, to do the pilgrimage down to Loudon and watch our NASCAR drivers, actually like race a couple times a year. Like it was not an odd thing for NASCAR to be on the TV. Mine was Mark Martin, which originally Mark Martin was the Valvoline guy, which was pretty cool. But then he got older and he became the Viagra guy. So I got a good bit of grief for that.
Just like every aging man, I guess.
Yeah. But my dad's was Dale Earnhardt. My brother's was Dale Earnhardt. Dale Earnhardt, rest in peace, took a horrific fatal crash.
I remember that day. That was sad.
That was a sad day. But my dad is like competitive to a fault in like the most beautiful ways. And like I've witnessed this. I've been the recipient of his like kind of flawed competitive nature. The bottom line, this guy absolutely loves that I still compete in sports, and like he wants to be there really no matter what. Um, and he kind of got that nickname at the 2019 Bandera. I was chasing down Chris Mocco and Tyler Green. Um, at one point I was in fourth. Um, Matt Daniels actually fell and hit his head and like had to drop out of the race. All of a sudden I'm in third and I'm like right with Chris Mocco. I'm like, this is my golden ticket moment. Like I'm going to get into states. And I hammered so hard. I got to the finish line. I think I ran like sub 6 minute miles for the final like 5 miles of that 100K. I got third. And at the finish line, I see my dad and he like gives me a hug. And then he's like, these are my friends, Tyler Green and Rachel Drake. I'm like, yeah. And Tyler's like, Jeff, your dad was crewing me the whole race. He was awesome, man. He was like dumping water on me. He was handing me bottles. And Chris Mocco's like, yeah, same here, man. Like, Rick, thank you so much. Like, that was a hot day and you helping me out like made a huge difference. And I'm just there like, what the fuck, man? Like, you just crewed the two guys that beat me. And Race Day Rick was kind of born at that moment of like, he is the pit stop, like NASCAR pit crew. At times, just one anecdote, at times it goes a little sideways. Coming into Michigan Bluff in 2023, I was like, I think maybe just flirting with like fifth place at that point and hammering pretty hard. And it's hot. So yeah, I wanted to get water, but my dad just threw 3 liters of water, just full blast at the side of my face, like into my ear as I was like running. I wasn't in the aid station yet, just like hit me like a brick. And I was just like, I got to the aid station, like, you guys got to tell dad, he can't do that. Like, stop the violence with the water. So sometimes his excitement gets the better of him. I think this past year he wasn't allowed to get on the shuttle down to Ruckachunky, so he like hiked through the woods all the way down, basically from Forest Hill, like to Ruckachunky, like through Poison Oak and trespassing and like breathe.
That's how far he's willing to go for you.
Breathe. Yeah, I always have to have someone else who is like my crew chief and chill it down a bit, because I wouldn't trade Race Day Rick's presence for anything, but it is good to have someone balance him out a little bit.
Yeah, he's like the valuable member that you could give any task and he's gonna get it done. He just probably needs that other person to balance the energy.
Yeah, and to like delegate, like, actually, Rick, you only need to focus on this. You're gonna do it super well. Other people are focusing on these things, but yeah,
that's super special. Yeah,
I feel super super fortunate to have a dad who's like keen to travel to places and support me.
All right, yeah, totally. And my dad crewed one race and he fell asleep at night, I think, because it was so miserable. He just like was sleeping in the chair and I woke him up when I got to the aid station. But it's always fun to include family, let them see what in the heck you're doing out there.
Yeah.
2 just last quick kind of rapid fire questions is, what was like the craziest product you tested? Or was there anything like super weird that you ended up with? And it's like, how am I going to write a gear review on this? I reviewed some pots once and it was really weird. Like, it boils water, but I had to turn it into like 700 words. So that's my example. A titanium pot.
I definitely had some like kind of odd. There were certain things I just refused. I was like, hey, I can't do this. Like I remember the first like super soft cushion shoe I ran in, where like every heel, like 20, 30 or 25 or 30 mil of foam, but every heel strike, like I went all the way to the ground, or like as my foot rolled through it, like the supination, like shoe would want to fold over, and then on the toe lift off on the like kind of pronation to supination, like the foam was just like everywhere. I was like, I'm just gonna give these back. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I think I might have told you before. I think it was like this weird like radio photo sunglasses that were like definitely ahead of their time. Like Meta's got the Ray-Bans now, but these were like, an early iteration of that, and it kind of felt like a military goggle.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I have no idea what to do with these.
Totally. Okay. Jeff McGavro says about you, he loves, loves, loves burritos. So what's the best burrito spot or the best burrito you've ever had?
Ooh.
And what makes a
Um,
good burrito?
I think what makes a good burrito is kind of like consistency of like the mixture, right? The matrix that you actually put into that burrito and how things blend together. And I often, like, if I'm doing breakfast burritos, I'll often start with some rice in the pan and then crack a couple eggs into it and kind of mix it together. Because rice and egg, like, just fill voids really, really nicely. Um, I eat a lot of burritos. I think I typically go with like the leftover burrito. So I'm not like afraid of putting, the previous night's like salmon into a breakfast burrito. But typically I end up with like sweet potatoes, sriracha mayo, maybe a little bit of like spinach or kale, rice, some eggs. One of the key ingredients that I think like you can't really do without is just pickled red onions. I'm making, 2 liters of pickled red onions basically every 2 weeks so that they're always in our fridge. And it's just this like topping that does go on a lot of things, but also goes really well on burritos. We got an air fryer on our, as a wedding present, which I didn't think I'd say that sentence ever, but air fried chickpeas are the bomb. And like having that little bit of crunch component in there, crispy like red chili crisp is like a nice component to throw in the mix. I love making burritos, and I love like it's one of the few things I like took with me from the huts is like I wouldn't shy away from making 30 burritos like that. Like, cooking for quantity is still something I really enjoy. So when like we end up having a party or guests over in the morning, I'm just like, can I just make everyone burritos and find a lot of zen in getting to roll a bunch of those up. And yeah,
That's awesome. Well, he is the man who's dangerous with the tortilla. And if he ever starts a podcast, it should just be reviewing burritos because I think he could talk for 30 minutes about that.
yeah,
Thanks for jumping on easy_dog, right? It was easy
easy
something.
dog. Yeah.
Easy_dog on Instagram. Yeah, thanks a bunch for jumping on. This was super fun.
Thanks, Jeff. I look forward to getting out on an adventure with you and getting to pick your brain about some of your long efforts and learn more about you. I've always been an admirer from far.
Thanks. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for listening. That was a fun episode. I am really enjoying this month of Jeff. It's pretty funny. Most of the time to get people, I'll just write them an email and say, I'm doing a month of Jeff on the podcast, on my podcast, if you want to be on. And everyone's just been like, oh, that sounds fun. I'm in. And they don't ask anything more about the podcast. So that's cool. So we have that going all month. Big thing. Patreon.com/freeoutside to learn about nose strips. Do they help you? Do they not? Or do they just look stupid? Here are my thoughts. And 5-star reviews. Just like, subscribe. That's it. Share. Sharing helps. Sharing is caring. That's what they say. All right. With that, my friends, stay elite, my friends.